Hi there, my name is Life LeGeros. I'm Professional Development Coordinator at the Tarrant Institute for Innovative Education. I would like to share with you a presentation that I did at Vermont Fest that discusses what I have learned by trying to institute my own professional learning plan uh, or personal learning plan, as we call these for students. Uh, I've learned a number of things. First of all, what it is not. It is not the same as what they call in Vermont an IPDIP, an individual professional development plan. It's more of a journal. There's a picture of my diary from when I was 10. Another way to think about it is it's not a product. It's more of a process. That's the important and powerful part of a PLP. When we look at what the Agency of Education has provided in terms of resources, we find a couple of checklisty type things. One is actually called the Critical Elements Checklist, and also when we look at their example PLPs, we see a very checklist type approach. When I look at those components, I think they're spot on about the components, if not in terms of the way that it can play out in practice in the most powerful way. So looking at those bullets and organizing them visually, you can think about the components of a PLP as some sort of identity work, something about yourself as a learner or a professional, and that informs your goal setting, that your goals are connected to your identity, and then that those certainly connect to, reach up, aspire to the learning expectations. For students, those are standards, transferable skills. As a professional, it could be standards for teachers. It could be other goals within your school or district. But the most important thing I've learned is that behind it all, binding it all together, is the process of reflection. And that within each of these components, you can be reflecting in an ongoing way around your identity, around your growth as related to goals, and of course, around the concepts and skills that you're working on. In terms of mechanics, that reflective process needs a place for it to happen, some sort of play space for your ideas, and that those ideas will ultimately be feeding into some sort of demonstration of your growth and your learning, or an exhibition. And that behind this is a depository. Most many schools in Vermont are using Google for this, and therefore the reflection place space they're using Blogger, and for the exhibition piece they're using Google Sites. That's what I did for my PLP as well. Thinking beyond the actual mechanics and to the functionality of the PLP, of course it can be used as a demonstration tool, that exhibition piece, but we also can think about the PLP functioning as an engagement tool to keep us connected to our learning or our work, a planning tool for setting out goals and action steps, a thinking tool where we process information and learning and construct knowledge, and a social tool where we share what we're learning and get guidance and feedback from teachers and parents, if you're a student, possibly even other students, and as professionals with colleagues and supervisors. Notice that of all these functions, most of them are pursued through the process of reflection, and I've colored those green here. In my experience, I do have a PLP through a Google site that I use in thinking about goals and in discussions with my boss. I've created blogs on Blogger that I can use for experimentation, trying out different tech tools, seeing how they show up in Blogger and how they can be shared. And then I have another blog that I share just with my colleagues as a professional learning community where we're able to pose questions to each other, post resources, try out ideas, etc. I know that the educators and students that I'm working with in Washington West Supervisory Union have PLPs, have blogs behind them. Here's an example of the principal of Waitsfield Elementary School, where she's modeling for her teachers and a broader community how to use a PLP to guide and document her own professional growth. Thank you, Kaya Korb, for sharing that. So why should you consider having one of these for yourself? Well, first of all, do it for yourself. As a professional, it's a really important tool. And thinking about reflection and its role in professionalism, we can look to other professions such as social work, where it's really expected and it's commonplace that professionals are engaged in ongoing reflection and documenting that to a large extent. Here's a quote from the Pocket Guide, and you can really just think of much of what you see here in terms of teachers or educators as well, because teaching is also a complex profession. It's not mechanistic. You're dealing with changing dynamics. And the metaphor, comparing it to theater, also makes sense, because if a teacher was an actor, you could not follow an exact script because you're working with people. They're unpredictable, and you need to be able to improvise and ad-lib. Reflection supports your ability to do that. If you think about the functions of a PLP for students, the same apply to teachers, where we should be documenting our growth and keeping an updated professional portfolio. And we need to stay connected to our profession. We need to plan our growth areas, think through and process all the things we learn on a day-to-day basis, and of course share with our colleagues and our professional learning communities. If you're not going to do it for yourself, do it for the children. It's very helpful in a context where students are required to have PLPs for us to have them as well. It allows them to understand what a PLP is inside and out. It allows us to model what a PLP can and should be in terms of ongoing professional growth. And the students are watching, and they will see, sniff out any aspect of hypocrisy. And so if we're asking them to do PLPs, we should do it too. I ended my presentation with a quote from John Dewey's How We Think, and he puts it very central to in terms of reflection for the basis of a fruitful and creative mind. So let's all aspire to that. I hope that some of you will consider creating PLPs for yourself. Please be in touch, and thanks a lot for listening.